Amouage. Everything up to this point has been Paris, London, Europe. Now we go somewhere else entirely. Amouage was founded in 1983 in the Sultanate of Oman, not by a designer, not by a perfumer, by the Sultan himself. The brief was explicit. Create perfume worthy of being a gift between kings. The company's own tagline is the gift of kings, and they meant it literally. Technically, Amouage operates at a different register than most Western luxury houses. Omani frankincense, myrrh, oud, dense roses, warm spices, amber, all in concentrations that project further and last longer than almost anything from a European designer. These are not subtle fragrances. Here's what makes it stranger and more interesting than it first appears. Most of the formulas are created by French perfumers. French noses trained in Grasse and Paris, working with Omani ingredients and Gulf aesthetics. A hybrid that shouldn't work on paper and is absolutely magnificent in practice. Sensorially, wearing Amouage is like putting on an invisible velvet coat. Heavy, layered, impossible to ignore in a room. A cloud of frankincense and rose that arrives before you do and stays after you leave. A perfume created by a sultan for kings, built by French hands, using ingredients that have been burned in palaces since before Paris existed.
Chanel. There's one answer almost everyone gives when you ask them to name a luxury perfume. Chanel No. 5. And the story behind that bottle is not what anyone expects. In 1921, Coco Chanel walked into a laboratory and gave the perfumer Ernest Beau one instruction. Not roses, not jasmine, not a bouquet of flowers. She wanted it to smell like a freshly laundered bedsheet. Beau came back with 10 samples, numbers 1 through 5, numbers 20 through 24. Chanel picked number 5. Here's the part nobody mentions. The assistant had made a mistake on that vial, put in too many aldehydes, way too many. That sparkling, almost soapy shimmer that makes number 5 impossible to decode note by note, it came from a measurement error. She chose the accident and named it after the accident. Technically, number 5 is built from roughly 80 natural and synthetic ingredients, with an unusually high concentration of aldehydes that give it that clean, abstract quality, like the idea of elegance, not the smell of any single flower. The formula rested in tanks for months before bottling, so everything could fully integrate, a process almost nobody was doing in 1921. Sensorially, number 5 is not a sweet perfume. It's not a floral perfume. It's closer to a cloud, structured, luminous, impossible to pin down. You recognize it before your brain names it. The most successful perfume of the 20th century was a laboratory accident picked by a woman who refused to smell like flowers.
Clive Christian. Everything so far has been France, or France adjacent. This one belongs to a different empire entirely. In 1872, a perfumery called the Crown Perfumery was established in England, and Queen Victoria granted it something unique, the right to use her crown on its bottles. Not a royal warrant, the actual crown in relief on the stopper. In 1999, British designer Clive Christian acquired it and decided that if you're going to carry a crown, you should carry it seriously. Technically, Clive Christian operates at the extreme top of the concentration pyramid. Extracts in the 20 to 25% range, heavy crystal flacons with gold detailing, the crown embossed on every stopper. The number 1 fragrance was recognized by the Guinness World Records as the most expensive perfume in the world. The right to use Victoria's crown wasn't inherited paperwork. It was a direct acknowledgement from the Queen herself, a symbolic seal that Clive Christian treats as the entire foundation of the brand's identity. Sensorially, these perfumes sound like a red carpet. Rich, layered, generous. Dense florals over amber and warm wood, nothing held back. Perfumes that were designed, unambiguously, to cost what they cost and project accordingly. A man who inherited a crown and decided to build an entire perfumery around the weight of it.
Creed. And here's where the story gets complicated, in the best possible way. Creed claims to have been founded in 1760 in London as a tailoring house that made bespoke fragrances for European royalty. Napoleon, Queen Victoria, the Prince of Wales. The story is extraordinary. It's also, at least partially, extraordinary marketing. Historians in the fragrance industry have pointed out that verifiable documentation for much of the pre-20th century narrative is thin. The records that exist clearly become solid considerably later than 1760. Which puts Creed in a unique position, a house that sells mythology by the bottle, and makes some genuinely excellent perfume while doing it. The modern Creed, run by Olivier Creed and his son Irwin, built its reputation on working with natural materials in an almost tailoring approach to construction. Clean, projecting, built to last. And then, in recent years, Aventus arrived. A modern chypre with pineapple, birch smoke, and clean musks that became, somehow, the unofficial fragrance of male ambition globally. The most cloned perfume in the independent market. The scent that launched 1,000 duplicates. Sensorially, Creed smells like a well-cut suit. Clean, but with intention. Projecting without aggression. Fresh top notes over a smoky, woody base. A house built on legend, sustained by craft, and sold like heritage. Whether the legend is entirely accurate turns out to be beside the point.
Dior. Everyone knows Dior through the campaigns. J'adore, Sauvage, Miss Dior, the golden woman diving into a pool of perfume. But this house operates as two completely different perfumeries at the same time, and most people only ever see one of them. Christian Dior opened in Paris in 1946, and within a year, 1 year, he had already launched the first fragrance, Miss Dior, a perfume built to match the new silhouette he was putting on women's bodies, the new look, the nipped waist, the full skirt, the entire idea that glamour had returned after the war. Miss Dior was supposed to enter a room 1 second before the woman did, and linger after she left. Technically, Dior's mainstream universe runs on volume and polish, lush florals, velvet ambers, sophisticated chypres with an extremely finished quality, every edge softened, every note in its correct place. And then there's the other Dior. Hidden behind the bestsellers, the ones you find in every airport duty-free, is an entire wing of haute perfumery that works with raw materials as carefully sourced as any niche house. Concentrations and constructions that would make most indie perfumers nervous. The same house that makes the TikTok perfume runs, in parallel, an almost artisanal laboratory. The Dior someone with taste wears doesn't announce itself. It just changes how a room feels.
Éditions de Parfums, Frederic Malle. Every other house on this list is a brand. Frederic Malle is a publishing house. When he launched Éditions de Parfums in 2000, Malle, grandson of a perfumer with decades inside the industry, did something the fragrance world considered radical. He put the perfumer's name on the box. Not the brand, not the campaign, the person who made it. The way a book publisher puts the author's name on the cover. Technically, this meant giving each perfumer, Dominique Ropillon, Carlos Bernheim, Jean-Claude Eleanor, others, creative freedom and budget, with almost no commercial constraints. The result is a catalogue where each fragrance has a distinct voice, some minimalist, some baroque, none of them designed to fit a trend or a season. Before Malle, the industry standard was to hide who created the fragrances, to treat perfumers as anonymous craftspeople behind a brand persona. Malle changed that. Today, serious fragrance collectors know the names of their favorite perfumers, largely because of what he started. Sensorially, there's no Malle house smell. What connects the catalogue is the sense that each one was written, not planned, composed with intention, not by committee. The Penguin Books of Perfumery, a shelf of potential classics, signed, edited, and released with bibliographic obsession.
Guerlain. Before Chanel existed, before Dior, before any of the names you just heard. Guerlain. Pierre-François Pascal Guerlain opened his perfumery on the Rue de Rivoli in Paris in 1828. The family ran it for over a century without selling it to a conglomerate. Over 100 years of one family making perfume. And somewhere inside almost every Guerlain you've smelled, there's a hidden signature. Perfumers call it the Guerlainade, a base accord that reappears across different fragrances, vanilla, tonka bean, iris, something creamy and almost edible underneath everything. It's the house whispering its name without ever saying it. In 1925, Jacques Guerlain created Shalimar, considered the first true Oriental fragrance in history. Bergamot on top, bright, almost citrusy and cold, over a base so dense with vanilla and resins it's practically...
Hermès. You probably think of the Birkin first, or the silk scarf, the orange box, not the perfume. That's exactly how Hermès wants it. The house started in 1837 as a saddlery workshop in Paris. Harnesses, bridles, leather for horses, and the people who rode them. That DNA never left. You can still smell it. Technically, the perfumery Hermès became known for, especially during the era of perfumer Jean-Claude Ellena, is almost the opposite of opulence. Minimalist constructions, transparent, full of air between the notes, fresh orange peel, dry, warm wood, smooth leather that doesn't shout. Things that smell less like a finished perfume and more like the objects themselves. Ellena described his work as sketches, not paintings, lines, not blocks of color. Hermès never wanted to dominate perfumery. The fragrances function almost like olfactory scarves, each one a variation on the same house, the same materials, the same quietly elevated world. Sensorially, the right Hermès feels like silk against the back of your neck, sophisticated without volume, luxurious without announcing itself. The kind of perfume that only reveals itself to someone standing close enough to deserve it.
Maison Francis Kurkdjian. If Amouage is a palace burning with incense, Maison Francis Kurkdjian is a crystal glass held up to a flame and turned into air. Francis Kurkdjian had been one of the most respected noses in the industry for years, creating for Givenchy, Jean-Paul Gaultier, others, before founding his own house in Paris in 2009. He knew exactly what he was doing. He'd been doing it for other people for 2 decades. And then came Baccarat Rouge 540. The name is precise. Baccarat, the 250-year-old crystal manufacturer. Rouge, red. 540, the exact temperature in degrees Celsius at which crystal mixed with 24-karat gold powder turns red inside the furnace. He translated a temperature into a perfume. Technically, the accord is saffron, amberwood, jasmine, and a faint metallic quality, clean and sweet simultaneously, like burnt sugar suspended in cold air. The sillage is so specific that people started recognizing it in elevators before they knew what it was. Luxury elevator smell became a real phrase people used. The original launch was in limited edition Baccarat crystal flacons. Then a retail executive smelled it on someone's skin and wouldn't leave Kurkdjian alone until it became a regular release. Sensorially, MFK fragrances balance transparency and excess, clean on top, dense underneath, like the way light moves through crystal. He turned a glass furnace into a signature, and the signature turned into an entire culture. Matière Première. Every house on this list built an empire. A narrative, a legacy, a mythology. This last one went in the opposite direction entirely. Matière Première was co-founded by Aurélien Guichard, 7th generation of a perfume family from Grasse in the south of France. The same Grasse that has been the center of the world's fragrance industry for 400 years, where the roses and the jasmine and the tuberose grow. Most perfumers today buy their raw materials from suppliers. Guichard grows his. He is described as the only contemporary perfumer who cultivates his own ingredients in Grasse instead of sourcing them at a distance. From the same field, from the same family, 7th generation of hands in the same soil. Technically, each Matière Première fragrance is built around a single hero ingredient, the Matière Première, worked in high concentration. Tuberose, sandalwood, frankincense, rose. Close-up portraits of raw materials, without decoration, without distraction. You smell the ingredient itself breathing. That direct line from field to skin, from the same hands that grew it to the formula that carries it, is something almost no large house today can honestly claim. Sensorially, these perfumes are intense and focused. Nothing unnecessary, nothing performed. The material itself, in full concentration,
doing the only thing it was always meant to do. The French royal courts built Versailles. The Swiss perfected aldehydes. A sultan commissioned a gift for kings. A crystal furnace turned red at 540 degrees. And in Grasse, where all of this began, a seventh-generation perfumer is still walking through the same fields his great-great-great-grandfather walked through, growing what he'll put on your skin. If that's where you want to go deeper into
Serge Lutens. If you think perfume is just expensive soap, Serge Lutens is the artistic slap. He came from photography, from art direction, spent years as creative director for Shiseido, where he started building an olfactory universe that had almost nothing to do with department store aesthetics. The heart of his world is Les Salons du Palais Royal, a boutique hidden under the arcades of the Palais Royal in Paris. Low light, dark walls, flacons arranged like characters in a story. People describe it as one of the most beautiful perfumeries in Paris. Not a shop, a stage set. Technically, Lutens' perfumes are dense, often dissonant, sometimes challenging. Oriental compositions with names like poetry, smoke, dried fruit, dark florals, thick resins. These are not fragrances that ask to be liked immediately. Some of them take weeks to understand, and then you can't wear anything else. Sensorially, a Serge Lutens perfume has color, has texture. Incense, the color of amber. Rose with the texture of velvet and the temperature of something almost burning. He's not a perfumer in the commercial sense. He's a filmmaker who decided to shoot with his nose. The films are dense, uncomfortable, beautiful, and they stay with you in ways that clean, pleasant things rarely do.